All right, welcome to Trampled Underfoot Podcast, the live
Live,
show.
live on YouTube, in your living room, in your face.
Yeah. Uh,
So
should
what's going on this week, Eloy?
should we address the elephant in the room before we get on with the actual podcast or what?
Yeah, Facebook is about as messed up as a football bat right now.
Yeah, dude.
Facebook, Instagram, and the way I knew that it wasn't just me was I went to Twitter and I saw the number one trending story on Twitter right now is Facebook and Instagram are messed up, which just kind of went to prove to me that the only time people ever go to Twitter is when Facebook and Instagram are messed up. So it doesn't get used very often. Not by anybody I know, anyway.
Yeah, and on the heels of that, I went and did some running around today and got some things that I needed. I come back and I went to log into Facebook, and it just keeps that circular,
Yep.
and I was like, oh great. And then the way I sort of adjusted or figured it out was I went to other websites and they all loaded quickly, and I said, oh, there we have it. And then I found the situation, but I realized how much we, you know there, I find no shame in it. Social media is a great thing. You get to connect with your buddies, and they're from all around the world, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, I do too. But it's funny. I get notifications on this computer when people tweet, and I don't on my other main computer. So I come in on this computer to do some updating and do a few other things in here, and I'm getting these notifications. Such and such tweeted for the first time in a while. Such and such tweeted for the first time in a while. And I'm like, well, what the heck's going on? And then I go to get on Facebook to see why everybody is tweeting, and Facebook was FUBAR. So it's like, okay, that's why everybody's tweeting, because they can't get on Facebook and they're trying to let everybody know they're alive.
Which, like what you said,
Mhm.
you said this. It goes to show how many people use Twitter.
Yeah, because I mean, well, your name came up. Eloy tweeted for the first time in a while, you know, and I saw that in my notifications. It's kind of funny.
Look, the problem with all that, just I guess to wrap this whole bit up, and I guess we could leave this for the future podcast so people can look and whatever it dictates,
Yeah.
But just because we're live also and there's a live thing happening, we might as well address it. But
Sure.
the fact that this whole branch of social media has gone into the blackout zone leaves an open space for people's consumption of entertainment, this and that. Think of all the big stars on Facebook, and nothing to do with like the community that we usually hover around. Just in general, people aren't getting their dessert, and it might be a great opportunity for Johnny come lately, and I guess Tammy come latelys to go and do it up. Get out there and show your social media shebang and do it up, folks.
Yeah,
There's a whole gap in the entertainment world right now that
yeah,
you
but the
can fill.
problem is the problem with that is nobody's getting through. So Johnny and Tammy are in the same boat as Taylor Swift and Kanye West, So I mean,
Well,
and it's even worse on Instagram because there's more and more people on Instagram these days following those folks.
Well, but see, that's the whole thing. So here's I guess the little sort of about face of that is that, so they can't go to Facebook, they can't go to the Instagrams. What do they have left? They have less. They have to flood the YouTube, or they have to flood or sit on the couch with the cat and watch Netflix. But if you want that instantaneous gratification like what we offer, well, heck, come on in, people from across the world. Sit down, grab a little bit of popcorn. So that's what I was trying to get at. That now there's less possibilities, so they're gonna, sort of like.
I hear you. They're slamming Twitter, and I imagine they're slamming Snapchat as well. But God only knows what's going on there. But because while I am on Twitter, I'm not on Snapchat. I keep threatening my granddaughter that I'm gonna be, but I haven't so far. Got to leave something for the kids.
So I guess I do want to hit you with this day in history, and this is actually going to be airing January. Listen to me. This is going to be airing March the 19th,
right,
this coming week. So for the people listening to this right now, this is going to be the things that occur, the historical happenings on that day when this show airs on the podcast, March 19th. So I'll start it, because we'll probably edit that explanation out, and I'll start it. So this day in history, March 19th.
Mm-hmm.
Are you curious what went down?
All right, let me have it. Let me have it. Give it to me straight.
Okay, let's see what went on. So I have a list here, March 19th, and we're going to go ahead and start with 1571. Boy, that's pretty way back. But since I mentioned 1571, March 19th, I'll just say Spanish troops occupy Manila.
Okay.
Wow. And yeah, but of course, that's kind of way back. Like, we're talking way back machine. That's excessive, would you not say?
Yeah, even for our standards, that's pretty. Yeah.
But yeah, I know that's pretty crazy. Unless we're like talking, but I'm gonna do another one that's kind of back in the day, which is 1628, March 19th, and that's the Massachusetts colony was founded by Englishmen.
Oh wow, Massachusetts colony.
Yeah, so that's a notable day.
Yeah.
So that's how many years ago? How many hundreds of years ago? 400 plus years ago?
Yeah, quite. Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened in 1628 on this day. Let's go ahead and move up into our time. What say you? 1900s?
Yeah, yeah, that would be better.
Okay. So we'll go up to like let's start with the 1950s.
Okay.
So 1953, on this day, the Academy Awards aired on television for the first time.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that was what year?
1953.
53. Jeez. Okay.
Same.
You don't make that connection between the Oscars, because I knew it was going on back in the 40s and the 30s and what have you, but I never even thought about when was the first time it came on TV.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see. Let's continue on. Okay, 1964 on this day.
Okay.
Sean Connery begins shooting his role in Goldfinger.
Okay. Yeah, Dr. No was before that. So yeah, okay. Man, was I ever that young? I remember seeing that when it came out at the drive-in, Goldfinger.
Yeah.
That was, and I remember very little about it. I haven't seen it since. I need to go get that. I need to find it and watch it.
Oh man, those old Sean Connery 007 movies. I just love them.
They're so campy. They're funny. He's trying to be all Mr. Macho, and they're just so campy. They're cringy. You almost want to turn it off.
They are. They have their cringe, but I like the retroness as you're watching people sort of like, I guess, in the dress and garb of the time and the cars and the whole thing. It's just I think, wasn't Goldfinger the one that people would wake up poisoned with gold?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that was it.
That's a good one. That's a freaking good one. I'll just say this one note before we continue with the thing. I remember my first memory of watching James Bond on the silver screen was with my old man, and that was the movie Octopussy.
Okay.
which we went to see, and that was not Sean Connery, it was Roger Moore.
Roger Moore, yeah.
So that's when
Yeah.
I started off on that journey, at least on the big screen.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. It was Live and Let Die. Then it was Men with the Golden Gun, I think. There may have been one in between. But Live and Let Die was the first Roger Moore James Bond. It was the first one. I was old enough to really follow a movie and was really interested in it. And I thought Live and Let Die was a great movie. But then again, I was a kid. Then I want to say it was Man with the Golden Gun that I went and saw at the drive-in with a couple of my friends. And so I really started getting into James Bond during the Roger Moore era. I wasn't really exposed to the Sean Connery James Bond that much. And then going back and watching them later on, it's like, oh man, campy.
Yeah, they had a little bit of that going on. And Roger Moore, there was a little bit of campiness going on with Roger Moore, you know.
Oh, going back and watching them now, you bet. I mean, they were all pretty ridiculous. I mean, the smooth, debonair attitude is just like today that would not fly, but that was seen as so cool back then.
Yeah.
You know?
All right, so let's continue with this day in history, and let's see what we have. So we did the James Bond, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's continue on.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, are we just looking at entertainment, or are we looking at everything?
I'm looking at just, I guess it's a random. Today's famous birthdays is what it says.
Okay.
I think this site, gave us a large timeline, but like it's not very. The other site I like better, but just the same, we'll say a couple more. In this day in history, 1994, the largest omelet in history was made with 160,000 eggs in Japan.
Japan, home of weird stuff since 1848. Yep.
Okay, and so 2003, I haven't even read this. I'm reading as we go. U.S. President George W. Bush announces U.S. forces have launched a strike against targets of military opportunity in Iraq.
Yep, this was when we went into Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
Gulf War II started.
Yep.
So, man. Yeah, I was out of the military by then. I did not go. I was in for Gulf War I, but I didn't go there either because we were turning in equipment. Our unit was deactivating. So, but yeah, heck of a time. Well, I've got a couple up here for March 19th of in music history, if you want me to hit you with a couple of them.
Hell yeah.
Okay. In 1962, Bob Dylan released his self-titled debut album, but it didn't chart in America. It didn't do well at all. But then his breakthrough album came out the year following, called The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. Then people went back and bought the Bob Dylan album. It didn't do very well at all.
The first album, self-titled first album, it's something happened between the first one and he was on that road, but that second album, The Freewheeling Bob Dylan, is just an exquisitely well done album.
Yep.
I mean, it's him alone with his harmonica throughout the whole album. Yeah. But there's something very priceless about that, timeless, I'm sorry, about that, or special. It's just when you put your earphones on and you listen to that, he's right. It's like he's sitting right in front of you singing to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and his voice wasn't messed up like we hear afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. I often wondered, does he talk like that at home? Does he talk like he sings? I mean, can you imagine him sitting at the dinner table? Pass me the peas, you know. I
I
need more gravy for my biscuit.
I like biographies and uh, biographies of musicians. I really enjoyed a lot growing up, and I bought 2 volumes of the whole life of Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
In chronicling his performances one after the other, it was insane.
Yeah.
And then the book gives you a little bit of insight into, the possibilities of why he does certain this and certain that.
Yeah.
And it chronicles all his sort of attitudes and this, and they suggest that he plays the role of the guy you want to hate, and
On
he does
purpose.
on purpose.
Mm.
And so he'll do a crappy or he'll change up a song every time he sings it. So the time that
Yeah.
you like, Hard Rain is coming down or whatever. I forget the name. What's that? Hard Rain's Gonna Fall, or whatever the song.
Right.
He changes it up every time. People suggest it's just that he forgets how to. It's not that he forgets; it's just he changes it around,
Yeah.
and he's doing a thing with it.
Yep. Stevie Ray Vaughan used to do the same thing. He would, the lyrics, of course, he did, but solos and breaks and fills, he always wanted to change it. He didn't want to play the same thing twice until he started getting popular on radio. Then when he played If the House is Rockin', he played it straight. When he played Superstition, he played it straight. But if he was playing Voodoo Child, he just went crazy. There were some things he played straight, but then he would just go crazy in the solos and do his own thing. He was always changing things up. And I've heard from many, I've only seen Dylan live once, but I've heard from many people that Dylan does the same thing.
Yeah,
That he's always rearranging his own music and everything.
that's his thing. And he also, another thing that I don't know if he still does it, but he would record like all the performances. He'd record just like the Grateful Dead would do. He'd do the same thing.
Well, but there was one exception with Dylan. He always played All Along the Watchtower the same way. And that was after he heard Jimi Hendrix do it. He decided that was the way that song was meant to be arranged. And he always did it to that tempo. He may change a few things here and there, but he kept that tempo and he tried to keep with that vibe because he just loved the way Hendrix covered All Along the Watchtower.
There's we might have touched on this before, but there's the video excerpts of "We Are the World" from back in the 80s.
We did talk about this. That was funny.
So he you have all these people coming together to do that song, and you have Bruce Springsteen, you have Huey Lewis without the news. I think Aretha was there. I don't know if she was or not, but just all the big names, and they have sort of outtakes of him, and it's just it makes you want to sort of like cringe.
Oh, big time, yeah. Because it's like, are you kidding me? This is Dylan.
Because he's a song. What he is he's a songwriter he accompanies himself with. He writes songs.
Yeah. He has given great performances, but he's given some real dogs as well. Some real dogs. So, but what can you say? Everybody has an off day.
Yeah. So. I like Bob Dylan because of the body of work and the way I look at it. You can't look at it like some sort of new pop song or this or that. You got to look at it in sort of, like with the rear view mirror, looking back at the long history of what he's doing and singing and writing. Right. It's a difficult one because his voice does become rough.
Yeah. And I wonder how much. I still have to wonder how much of that was a put on. But
he could sing pretty good on that freewheeling Bob Dylan. He sang pretty freaking good. You could tell it's like a country like an untrained folk
yeah,
slash kind of voice, but he did good. And the way he, I would, if I were to record such a great album, and then you got
mhm.
consecutive albums coming up, and you find that the new mic setup or the new tone is that, I would refer back to that good sound and try to emulate what I did there, because it came out so good, and he didn't do that.
He did several very, very good tunes. I don't think there's anybody who would knock his performance on Lay Lady Lay.
No,
He did very good vocals. Everything was clear. He enunciated perfectly, and it all came right down. It was very, very good. Same with Knocking on Heaven's Door. He did very, very clean, clear vocals on that one as well. In fact, Knocking on Heaven's Door was one of my favorite Dylan songs, from the Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid
yeah,
album.
movie.
Yeah, movie soundtrack. But then you get into something like Rainy Day Women, or it just kind of was. It always sounded to me like he needed to take 2 steps closer to the mic and let them pick up his vocals.
Yeah,
Subterranean Homesick Blues sounds like it was done in the next building,
yeah.
and somebody was pointing a shotgun mic through the window. And that was the music as well as the vocals. I know it was low fidelity at the time, but it was just like you missed it that much, man.
Well, no, but see, here's the thing. That's what we expect, in our with our taste. But in the book, they refer a lot to. He always mentioned that from that period of time,
Mhm.
that he wanted that sort of Mercury, that metallic Mercury, traveling through Saturn. I'm paraphrasing, but those
Yeah,
words are there. Sound, that sort of like, so he actually purposefully, that's,
really.
yeah. So I'm saying he purposely, and they talk about it a lot in the biographies or
Yeah.
chronicles, and so they often question, people question the quality of his stuff as far as vocals with the. It's just he's
That's the
in.
way he wanted it. I didn't realize that that's how he wanted it, because I'm
Yeah.
back here going, bass, dude. Have you ever heard of it?
No, that it's actually a thing that he purposefully throughout the thing, and that one album that you mentioned, that's what is it? Is it This Day in History
Um,
or This Month in History?
this is Today in History.
Okay, the 19th.
Yeah, March 19th.
So I think that that's the best vocals that you get as far as the recording quality, and you could hear you could literally put the headphones on and listen to it, and you feel like you're in the room with him. And by the way, the whole album is entertaining from the beginning to the end. That album.
Okay.
So
And that was his self-titled was released today, but they were talking about how it didn't chart at all, but it set the stage for his breakthrough, the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan.
and that's the one that I'm giving props to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on the stranger side of music, today in 1988, Michael Jackson broke ground on his 2,800 acre ranch known as Neverland.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah. Now, this one will hit home with you more than it will me. And I mean, seriously, I mean, no pun intended, because the subject matter is not good. But today in 1982, Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist Randy Rhoads was killed in the
Oh
plane
wow.
crash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear about the plane crash? What was going on?
When I was a kid, no.
Okay. He took an airplane ride with the tour costume designer and hairdresser and a pilot in a small plane. And they're up there squirreling around, and the pilot went to buzz Ozzy's tour bus. It doesn't say whether this was on the highway or in a parking lot somewhere, but the wing clipped the bus and the plane crashed into a nearby house, killing everybody on board. So they were up goofing off, squirreling around, and the pilot, the tour costume designer and hairdresser, and Randy Rhoads were all killed in the plane crash.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I didn't know that.
yeah. But on a lighter note, in 1975, so yeah, today in 1975, the movie version of The Who's rock opera Tommy premiered in the U.S.
Oh wow.
Did you ever see that movie?
Oh yeah, I had it on VHS.
I'm sorry, but it was a dog of a movie. Great
Yeah.
soundtrack, but a dog of a movie.
Okay, well, I'll tell you this. I have to agree with you. I had it on VHS because back in the day, you'd go to these VHS/CD cassette tape stores. I think they called them record stores.
They did. And I think we've mentioned them a time or two. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
And it was there, and I bought it because I like the Who. And but yeah, it had it had Eric Clapton in the church scene.
Tina Turner, the Acid Queen.
Yeah, and it was kind of it had what's this guy's name? Elton John.
Was the Pinball Wizard. Yep.
Yeah. You're right. As far as the movie is concerned,
yeah,
not too. And by the way, I'm not too crazy about Pink Floyd's The Wall movie either. I am not.
I never saw it because I didn't want it to ruin the album.
It would ruin the album.
Yeah, I never wanted to ruin the album, so I didn't go see it. Things like that. After my experience with the movie Tommy, it was such a letdown that I said, nope, I'm not going to go do this anymore. I'm not going to go see any more movies based on record albums.
Yeah.
I did one more for my ex-wife because she wanted to go see it so bad. And that was, I went and saw, oh my God, which one was it? It was about the Beatles, starring the Bee Gees. Aerosmith was in it.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
Was in it. Yeah, and I'm trying to remember the name of the movie.
Sergeant Pepper. It was Sergeant Pepper's.
Yeah, Lonely Hearts Club Band. And oh, what a dog!
Yeah,
serious dog. And I want the time it took me to watch that movie back. Still,
Yeah, rock musicians can't necessarily. Well, that's not true. I was gonna say rock musicians can't necessarily. You can't expect a good rock and roller to put out a good movie. But that guy, and I know you don't like the genre too much, the horror genre, but Rob Zombie. Do you know Rob Zombie from White Zombie?
I know who he is.
Yeah, so the guy is a talented freaking director, dude. He did the House with, or something like House with 1,000 Corpses, and then The Devil's Rejects and all that. And he's far off into the horror area.
Yeah,
like super freaking like macabre.
Mm-hmm.
Like sort of like, what is it, Texas Chainsaw Massacre style?
Yeah.
But freaking well done. So
yeah.
I can't say 100%, but yeah, for the most part, these rock and roll movies, man, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just leave it the album. Don't try to get involved in film. And for God's sakes, please don't try to act. There are very few exceptions to that rule. Very few. Isaac Hayes could act. Well, Robert Downey Jr., I knew him as an actor before I knew of him as a singer. The guy's got a voice. I like his music. So there are very, very few exceptions to that rule. But overall, in general, if you got a good gig going with a band, don't try to act, please.
Yeah.
I mean, Keith Richards doing a cameo in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Okay, fine. He just portrayed himself in makeup. But, but you know, don't turn the album into a rock opera. It's not going to come out well. So I'll get off of that soapbox for a little bit. But you know, it leads to a few other things. I mean, talking about Robert Downey Jr. and not knowing that guy could sing, he's got an excellent voice, and it surprised the heck out of me. And
I
that got me
haven't listened.
thinking about other actors who are surprisingly good at something else. Like for instance, it came as a surprise to me. It's been several years ago that I found out, but I didn't realize Johnny Depp never wanted to be an actor. He wanted to be a rock guitarist.
Yep.
And things didn't work out, you know, and a friend asked him if he would do, you know, he did that one TV show. Then a friend asked 21 Jump, yeah, 21 Jump Street. And then a friend asked him to do Gilbert Grape, and the rest is history. And then it turns out people were like me going, I didn't know he could play guitar. Yeah, that's what he wanted to do.
And a lot of these actors also resent that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy, what's his name? The guy that was married to Angelina Jolie.
Brad Pitt?
No, the other guy with the peppery hair.
Yeah, I can't keep track of them. I don't know. I'm a cultural infidel, and I proudly proclaim it. I don't know who she was married to.
Well, he's a famous guy too, actor. Well, he's actually a drummer and singer and this and that. And but the guy has got a chip on his shoulder, dude. He did an interview. Boy, I wish I could tell you the name of the guy. Is it Bobby Lee Thornton or?
Oh, Billy Bob Thornton?
Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bobby Lee Thornton.
Bobby Lee. Well, you know, almost. That's his twin brother. I just looked over here at the chat in the YouTube live stream, and Jamie Page, JP Woodwork, he's throwing them in here. It's like, holy cow. Mark Wahlberg, the actor Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Mark and the Funky Bunch. He was a rapper before he got into acting real big.
Yeah, Marky Mark.
And then John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, Grease.
Yeah.
You know, so there were a couple there. But Travolta was an actor who went to singing. He was in that TV show Welcome Back, Kotter, and then he released a single. But he was the teenage girl heartthrob. So they drove sales for that single.
Oh, yeah.
But Olivia Newton-John did do a good job in that movie.
I love Olivia Newton-John. She was just incredible.
And Will Smith, and now that I'm thinking about it, Eddie Murphy.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a few more. But so they are the exceptions that prove the rule.
Yeah.
But you know, I can't imagine Ozzy playing Hamlet. You know.
Yeah, he's a funny guy, Ozzy Osbourne. You know, he's a nervous mess.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, that's putting it diplomatically too. But I can't see him playing Hamlet. You know, alas, poor you. What the hell's your name? You know, he'd make a good Reverend Jim in Taxi, but that's about it.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So what else do we have in music?
That was all that I found that was worth a ding dong for March 19th. March was not a banner day, or banner month for music. I mean, there's not a lot going on in March.
I can tell you that as a fact that it's going to be, at least in the month, it's going to be Eric Clapton's birthday.
Oh, okay. Cool.
March 30th.
March 30th is Eric Clapton's birthday?
Yeah, one day before mine. And I remember it because of that. Plus, I like Eric Clapton so much, and I was like, man, it's almost like we have the same birthday, just almost, you know.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the albums that were released in March of '69, looking for something that was happened 50 years ago. And it's a bunch of stuff that's kind of meh.
Well, hit them. Do a back to
Well,
back. I've got something, but before you do that,
okay.
hit us back to back, even if they're meh or not. I mean, you'll decide. But after that, I have some sort of strange history stuff like what we did last time,
Mhm.
and I'll sort of bullet shoot them out as well to see what you think.
Okay, well, but this is a lot of meh music. Odessa by the Bee Gees. Never listened to it. Dusty Springfield, Dusty in Memphis. Never listened to it. Blue Matter by Savoy Brown. Never listened to it. Bowl of the Woods by the 13th Floor Elevators. Never heard of them. You know? Okay, one album I have actually heard of. My Way by Frank Sinatra.
Oh, well, that's a classic.
I'll close it out with that because it doesn't get any better.
It gets worse.
It gets more meh. Scott 3 by Scott Walker. Okay, fine. Play with it outside. You know, there's just really nothing there to be said.
Wow, dude.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, so I've got 27. We're not going to go through all 27, but
Okay.
because I haven't even read them, so we're all going to find out together. But this is 27 historical facts that are almost too weird to be real, but they're all true.
Okay.
Okay, so
All right. Let's have it.
so here we go. Albert Einstein.
Okay.
Albert Einstein could have been president of Israel when it was formed, but declined.
I had never heard that. I had never heard that.
Well, if you're very curious, we could go into the synopsis of them.
Well, I was just going to say a little side trip from that. When you said Albert Einstein, I almost made a smart aleck remark. You know the actor Albert Brooks?
Yeah.
That's his real name, is Albert Einstein.
Oh, really?
Yep. His brother Bob Einstein played Super Dave Osborne.
Well, Einstein's he said that he lacked the natural aptitude and the experience to deal properly with people to do that job correctly.
Wow.
So he actually, he said, "Nah, not for me. I'm more into, physics and whatnot."
Okay. Okay.
So here's another one.
All right.
Next one. Before dentures were invented, teeth were pulled from the mouths of dead soldiers for use as prostheses.
Yep, they were. There was. They were called Waterloo teeth. That became real big after the Battle of Waterloo. There were like 30,000 people killed in that battle, and the local scavengers came through, and that's what they did. They pulled the teeth out of dead soldiers, and so false teeth became known as Waterloo teeth.
Dang, dude.
Yeah,
and you're wearing the. I guess they bleach them and clean them up and whatnot, right?
I don't know that they cared. I would imagine they kind of cleaned them up a little bit.
Boy.
But, yeah, I know. That'll go along with your dinner, won't it?
Yeah.
I'm glad we waited till after the dinner hour to do this.
So now here's another one. I don't know if you guys out there know it. I don't know if Mark knows it. I think I knew this one, or not that I think I knew this one, but it's not the kind of thing that you keep, in the front of your mind.
Okay.
Roman Emperor Caligula.
Yeah.
He made one of his favorite horses a senator.
Yes.
A senator.
Yep. Yep. Yes, he did. Yeah, it was another guy that was a couple of sandwiches shy of a picnic, but it's good to be the king. What are you going to say? You going to tell him he can't?
So here's another one.
Okay.
There's a giant mushroom. Hey, and by the way, this one is going to go straight to the heart of Lindsay.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So there's a giant mushroom in Oregon's National Forest with a root system that covers over 2,200 acres.
Yeah.
It's a mushroom, making it the largest living organism in the world.
I have heard that, and I have looked for it, and I don't know where it is.
It's in Oregon's Malheur.
Malheur. Okay. All right. I can look it up now. Now that I know which national, because this state is loaded with national forests and national parks. So now that I know which one, Mal here. All right.
And if you guys out there look it up, you're gonna you're gonna see a huge house of a mushroom
Yep.
sticking out of the ground. It's pretty, it's just amazing.
That's our claim to fame. Second deepest lake in North America and the world's largest mushroom.
So here's another one for you. Unless you're searching it now to look at it, so you can have some commentary.
No, I'm not searching that. I'm taking them as you give them to me, because I've got some more things of music here that I found.
Okay, cool. So in 1929, this one's ridiculous. This is the one that I laughed at when I told you, okay, I'm ready to do this the skit earlier on. In 1929, researchers at Princeton University claimed that they had turned a living cat into a telephone. It shows a picture of a plastic cat with a cord stuck out of its butt. And I just found it so freaking weird.
Okay, now, wait. They turned a living cat into a telephone.
Yeah, the cat telephone. Yeah.
Well, I don't reckon it was living after they turned it into a telephone. Well, was it?
It's a little bit on the quirky side, but
mildly.
So here's the next one. I didn't say they were all going to be brilliant. I'm just saying.
Okay.
When you see it with the picture, it just makes you laugh because it's like this poor cat. Anyways, number 6. Heroin was a perfectly acceptable medicine prescribed by doctors for everything from coughs to headaches.
Yep. Very few people realize that heroin is a brand name. It was developed by the Bayer Company, the aspirin makers over in Germany. And it was seen as a safer alternative to morphine. That it was supposedly non-habit forming.
Wow.
Yep. That was back during that time called the Great Binge, when the whole flippin' world was either drinking or drugging or both. Laudanum was real popular, which was basically alcohol with morphine in it.
I bet you heroin was super popular then.
Oh, it was. You could buy it over the counter. I mean, you could get throat lozenges that had heroin in it, because it's like you say, it was the cure for everything from a cough. And I can remember up into the 60s, codeine being in cough medicine.
Yeah.
And like Vicks Formula 44. And when they finally got off of it and started using dextromethorphan, their advertising changed to where this is effective as codeine, but it's non-narcotic.
Right. But people want the narcotic.
Well, we talk about the opioid epidemic now. It's nothing like it was. I mean, up to and including my lifetime. Because you could buy most of this stuff over the counter until they finally started cracking down on it.
Amazing.
But, yeah, it was, cough syrup with codeine in it.
All right, so the next one, while Pope Gregory was in power, and I'm reading these right out, I'm not, filtering them. He declared that cats were to be associated with devil worship, and had them exterminated in droves. Dude.
Well, I'm not much about the extermination part, but I agree with him firmly that cats are associated with the devil. They're tools of the devil. So you think you have a cat. You don't. The cat has you. And every day it's plotting your demise.
Oh, yeah. Cats will do what they want to do when they want to do. They have a superiority complex going on now, don't they?
Well, they don't consider it a complex. They know they own you.
Yeah. Well, this Pope, did a number on them.
Yeah.
And incidentally, cats are the ones that chase mice, which bring disease. So in a way,
Well, yeah, but I mean, as far as house pets are concerned, give me a dog any day. I'm a dog kind of guy.
well, to continue on with it, it actually says that it's believed that the disappearance of those cats helped rats spread the bubonic plague or Black Death that killed hundreds of millions of people in the 1300s. Do you think it was hundreds of millions?
Um,
That sounds
I,
a little bit exaggerated.
I've heard, and I don't remember where I read it, but one statistic I read say they estimated 1/4 of the population of Europe died during that time.
A quarter.
A quarter of the population.
That's insane. I
Yeah.
don't know what would that number be? That's the question.
I really honestly don't remember the whole thing, but that statistic kind of jumped out at me and it was like, holy hell. But yeah, millions died.
Wow.
Yeah. But they had no idea about anything. They didn't even realize that not washing your hands could make you sick, you know.
Yeah, if little things like that
Mhm.
would have been taken into account, those basic things, I bet you it would have been controlled significantly.
Well, they thought that you could get sick by taking a bath. You did it when you absolutely had to, and that was all. You know, but stripping your clothes off and getting into water and cleaning yourself, you risked, your death of cold, they would call it. You risk getting
Yeah.
pneumonia, but that's not exactly how it happens. But see, and they thought back then, up to and including the 1800s, they really thought that disease was spread by air
Yeah,
and
I was gonna get
by
into that, but go ahead.
by foul smells and
Mhm.
foul gases and what have you. In fact, the sewer systems in London were created not so much to get rid of the human waste, but to get rid of the smell of the human waste because they thought that's where the diseases came from.
And if you don't have knowledge and you put
Mhm,
it in the context when you smell something bad, it
mhm.
smells bad. Your body it's like
Right.
rotted fruit or food. You smell it or milk when it's
Yeah.
you take you sort of rebuke it. You push it back, and so it's not unreasonable to think that those people, hey, it smells bad. That's bad stuff. Keep it
Yeah.
away from here.
Right. But they didn't understand bacteria and things like that. Um, all they knew was people are getting sick, people are dying. This stuff reeks. Maybe if we get rid of this stuff that's stinking so bad, it'll take the diseases with it. And it did. So it kind of reinforced their theory. In fact, the British Army became the first standing army to regulate how far kitchens and food storage were to be kept from latrines and to keep them away. And that's basically how the British became one of the most powerful armies on the face of the earth. Because while other armies were sicker than dogs, they weren't, because they were following these practices. They
Right,
were
and if you think about it, it's also such a reasonable look. It's in retrospect, us now knowing all the things that we take for granted as human beings and speaking generally. But if you look back, I would like to think that I'm not going to be cooking where I just did
right.
number two right next to it. I would like to think that's the case, but
Yeah,
I'm not so sure with the lack of knowledge.
right.
Looking back in time.
It's easy for us to say in hindsight, but at the time they had no clue. They didn't see anything wrong with it. People get sick, people die. But when they're dying by the hundreds, and
Yeah,
they start making it turns out the assumption was incorrect, but the action they took was 100% the correct one.
yeah,
Separating, you know, input from outflow to make it, a little more tasteful here.
yeah.
That's when, now, again, they still weren't the healthiest people in the world because there were other illnesses. Um, I, I, Again, I can't remember where I read, but mosquitoes, just the little bitty mosquito, is responsible for the death of half of the people that have ever lived on Earth.
Oh wow.
All the diseases that it transmits.
Dude, we get bit by Florida, and especially here, South Florida, especially here, like next to the Everglades, just any The mosquito invasion is like it's just a miracle that we're even around. We've done away with a lot of the, we're also impervious to a lot of those diseases because of vaccinations
Right.
and all the thing. But
But
it's an amazing thing because mosquito bites here are common.
But as compared to other armies and other military forces, the British were at the top of their game, as at the top of the game as they could be. And that's what made them the world power of the day, was just that simple thing, keeping the food away from the poop, you know?
Yeah, even though they did it not knowing, they were thinking because it's stinky, but
Mhm,
that stinky is also an indicator of bad things too.
mhm.
So I guess that was a good, nature has a way of providing as well.
Yeah,
That smells bad, let me stay away from it, good idea.
exactly. Exactly.
you
So
know
now
and I
how
could
go ahead.
oh no, I don't want to, well, we got into it because I'm giving you the list
Uh-huh.
of strange things in history,
Yeah.
and we talked about the Pope,
Mhm.
and he got rid of cats, and they say that that might have led
Yep.
to, and so on and so forth. So,
Yeah.
but I wanted to mention one thing since we went down this rabbit hole,
Yeah,
and
that's just where my train of thought decided to head off.
and I know you've got stuff also to share with us, but I will say this: there was also the in during the bubonic plague, there were also those doctors that would come in with the masks, right? That looked like beaks. What were they called? Because I've
Oh,
made one in the past.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember what the hell they're called.
Plague doctors or
Yeah.
plague masks. Um, they would have this long beak and they'd cover their faces. You've seen them, right? Well, the purpose of the long beak was, do you know what the purpose of the long beak was?
No, I don't
They,
remember.
they would stuff fragrances and flowers and stuff that beak so that the bad smell that contaminates, they would be breathing in good stuff. And
Oh,
those people would actually go into those riddled with disease areas and perform whatever duties they could, which we
yeah.
know that they had no clue.
Yeah, not even realizing that it was actually fleas and not
They would bleed themselves.
yeah, they still thought bloodletting was yeah, bad blood and bad air.
Yeah. All right, so let's continue on. I
Well,
kind of enjoy that kind of line of
well,
conversation.
to
So,
kind of branch off just slightly one last little time and then I'll get out of it.
oh yeah, go ahead.
The name malaria, the root of that words, mal air, bad air.
Oh wow.
Because they had no idea it was from mosquitoes. They thought it was from quote unquote poisonous gases that came out of the earth at night.
Oh, very interesting. I didn't know that. That makes total sense. Malaria.
Yep.
Wow. All
Okay.
right, so here's another one. And again, these are being read, off the cuff. We don't know, even I don't know if it's going to be good or bad, and that's just how we do. So, Russian dictator Joseph Stalin often had photos retouched to remove people who had died or been removed from office.
Yep.
I'm looking at it now. They have various photos, and in one, and as people went, as years go on, or like if somebody's out of office, he, they just retouch it, and he ends up just being himself there. That's a pretty interesting little.
Did you
Uh,
ever read the book 1984?
no, I saw the movie. I never sat down with the book. I know
Uh,
what the yeah.
the book the book is much more detailed as you can probably imagine, but yeah, that's the Ministry of Information there. You know, it's if he's retouched out of the photo, he never lived.
Amazing.
You know, so yeah,
So here's another one that a lot of us know this, but here's another list of strange. I
yeah.
think it's strange. I don't know what you're going to think, but Chinese women used to painfully bind their feet to make them appear smaller and more feminine,
Yep.
to the point of just deformation
Mhm.
at a young age, wrapped and bandaged because that was appealing.
3 inches was the standard they tried to achieve. 3 inch long foot. And in some cases, I mean, you're talking about crippling people, basically, breaking the bones in their feet and binding them and allowing the bones to fuse back together. And they kept them bound, and changing the bandages were painful for their entire existence.
It's just
But yeah, it was a status thing. The higher class women did that, and the lower class women, if you didn't do that, you were seen as lower class. You were worse than a peasant.
I like my woman with big feet.
Yep. Swim fin size, huh?
Okay, here's one for you. I don't think you know this one, but you can prove me wrong. I'll believe you if you say yes or no.
Okay.
The shortest war in history was.
Oh, there was one that lasted for like just a few minutes, and I can't remember which one it was.
It's the one that we're looking at. It lasted for just 38 minutes.
Okay.
What was the shortest war in history that lasted 38 minutes?
I don't know. I don't know. I've heard of it, but I can't remember it.
Okay, fair enough. It's the Anglo-Zanzibar War.
The Anglo-Zanzibar War. Who was that between? Obviously, it was in Africa.
Zanzibar.
And who?
And some Anglos.
Okay.
The Anglo-Zanzibar War, it was a military conflict between the United Kingdom and Zanzibar. August 27th of 1896. The conflict lasted between 38 and 45 minutes, making it the shortest recorded war in history. The cause of the war, the death of the pro-British Sultan Hamad bin Thawani.
Okay.
And it just goes into that, whatever their skirmish was, but it lasted anywhere from 38 to 45 minutes long.
Well, I guess the folks of Zanzibar figured out the British meant it. It's like, don't make us come over there.
All right, so former North Korean dictator Kim Jong-il was said to be a great lover of music and composed 6 operas while he was in office.
Yeah. Okay.
The Leaning Tower of Pisa was actually never straight to begin with. The foundation began to sink when they started on the 2nd floor.
And they kept going.
And they kept going.
No, we were paid. We got to finish it.
Now that's a funny one. I did not know that. I thought that it started leaning throughout time. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that either. That's just funny to me. No, we started. We got to finish, or we don't get paid.
And they kept going because that's not a small.
No,
that's just ridiculous, right?
That's funny.
Ronald Reagan is best known for being president and acting in numerous films, but he was also a prolific lifeguard who saved 77 people from drowning.
I didn't know that. That's weird.
Yeah, totally. Researchers believe that famous Guanajuato mummies. So research believe that Guanajuato mummies' terrible expressions are the results of the victims being burnt alive. There's these mummies, and there's pictures of them floating through the internet, and their faces have this excruciating sort of like pose, as opposed to like the peaceful sleep, rest, or death, look to them. They look like they're in horrid pain, and so they call them grisly mummies. And there's a museum in Mexico talking about that. So that's a little bit of a weird one. If you guys want to type that in, you could go and search that. So that's number 15. Let's see. Let's go. A famous Native American named Blackbird was said to have loved his horse so much that he was buried sitting on top of it.
That, you know what? That's probably the least strange one that you've come up with so far.
Okay.
I don't think that is strange at all. And in fact, Something inside me says he probably wasn't the only one.
Let me see. I'll give you one more. All right, here's another one. I don't know what's going on here, but let's see. There's a picture, a drawing from medieval times, and we'll see. People in Spain used to employ a form of torture called the Spanish donkey. Victims had to sit high up, straddling a board while torturers tied increasingly heavy weights to their legs. So you'll have like a scaffolding type thing.
Mhm.
You sit on it like a horse, and they keep tying stuff to your legs, weighing you down and down and down and down. And that was their torture device.
As part of the Inquisition, no doubt.
Well, I'll tell you right now, we're looking at, let me see if they give us a date here.
You know, because I was surprised by the Inquisition. I thought, I didn't realize it lasted as long as it did. 300 years the Inquisition lasted.
Did it?
Yeah. Or longer. But at least 300 years. I have no clue.
The Spanish donkey is a medieval device, so
Yeah,
yep,
medieval period.
used by the Spanish Inquisition during the late Middle Ages. So late Middle Ages, yeah.
That sounds like about right.
Man, I'm telling you. I guess we'll do one more. Okay, here's the last one.
All right.
Winston Churchill famously loved cigars. And how much did he love cigars? 10 a day. He smoked 10 cigars a day. That is a lot of tobacco.
Yeah, that's a lot of tobacco, but in the great grand scheme of things, that's not really all that much.
Wow. Well, I don't know, man. That's a lot of nicotine.
Yeah, it is a lot, but I mean, how much of it was actually smoked and how much of it was just held, or
Well, if you're a cigar smoker, so if you're not a cigar smoker and you smoke cigars every now and again, one of the main things, like me, every now and again, the cigar, even though you have it up on your lip, but just one puff just goes into your bloodstream.
Yeah.
And it's heavy duty.
Yep. That's the whole point, actually. But yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So I'll do one more. This is the last one.
Well, okay.
And literally the last one, because
there are no more on that page. Go ahead.
There are no more on this page. So there's a picture of a lady, black and white, inside a room, kind of tattered and all that. We're talking Great Depression era. During the Great Depression, people often made clothes out of potato sacks.
Yeah.
Seeing this, distributors made their sacks more colorful to help people remain at least somewhat fashionable.
I didn't know that, but a flour sack dress, flour sack blouse or outfit goes back quite a ways. There were you didn't waste fabric. I mean, back in the 1800s, you didn't waste it. I mean, if nothing else, you can make underclothes out of it. They didn't throw it away.
It's an amazing thing.
Yeah,
But
the fact that they would kind of print it up a little bit more colorful or what have you to kind of help them out, that's different. That's not something I ever knew, but
yeah.
But wow.
Totally amazing. So yeah, that covers my bit, man. You had some other things that you wanted to touch on in reference to music.
Yeah. I wanted to throw a few things at you here, a few albums at you. Let's see. I know you've heard of Van Halen 2.
Oh, yeah.
The album. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Bad Company's Desolation Angels.
All I have is Bad Company's first album.
Okay. How about Supertramp Breakfast in America?
I know the band. I don't own the album.
Okay. How about let's see, Frank Zappa, Chic Your Booty?
That's my favorite Frank Zappa album, even though there's other great albums, but that one's just funny.
Yeah, it is. It's very good. Go West by the Village People.
I have never
Okay.
purchased or owned a Village People album.
Overkill by Motorhead.
I have not purchased a Motorhead album ever.
Okay. The Beach Boys, L.A.
I have the album.
Hmm.
It's not a great album necessarily.
Okay. You want to know what all of those have in common?
Oh, that nice twist.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I want to know.
They all turned 40 years old this month.
Awesome.
Van Halen 2 came out March 23rd, 1979, 40 years ago.
Does that album have, because I have the record still, Dance the Night Away. Dance the Night Away.
Let's see. Track listing. Yes, it does.
Dance that. Yeah, I have the record somewhere. I hope it's not been ruined with the elements because it's boxed up, but it's out in the shed somewhere.
It's 40 years old. So protect it. I never really was a Van Halen fanatic. Some of their music was okay. But 79, let's see, I was 18 and off doing whatever. I think I was still in my progressive rock thing then.
Yeah.
So,
well, Van Halen was they weren't necessarily deep,
uh-huh.
but they were like rock and roll, like the progressive stuff was for people that were going to sit there and ponder existence as we know it. And the Van Halen sort of sound was like, let's party.
Yeah.
So there is that. I just, I still enjoyed them terribly,
Yep. Hey, March 27th, my birthday. Eric Clapton married Patty Boyd, ex-wife of Clapton's friend George Harrison.
Oh, wow. We've hit on that one before.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's amazing. Yeah. And you know what's also amazing about March is that we both have birthdays on March. I mean, we're like a couple of days apart in the month's calendar.
Yeah. Yep. Mine's the 27th and yours is the 30th, right?
The 31st.
31st. Okay.
Eric Clapton is sandwiched right in the middle on the 30th.
Yep.
Okay. I'm sure there's other March people that are friends, but it seems like a weird, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel like March is like a weird? You're born in March. Wow, well, me too. I've always felt that way about that. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. I don't put a lot of stock into astrology or horoscopes or signs or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Aries people are kind of strange, I think.
See, here's the thing. I look,
mid-March, early April. It's just they're a little different.
Yeah, but you know how they say the Aries, and I'm with you on that. But is there something to it? Is there not? I don't know. But there seems to be some sort of, how can I put this? If somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, people like you like this, do this, they hit you with all these things that you might not like. Anybody can make anything sound
right,
like it's associated to you. I don't know if that makes sense the way I'm saying it.
It does. It makes absolute sense. And you can write down, excuse me, good grief. You can write down a list of traits that are quote unquote describing an Aries person. You can write down a list of traits and you hand them to 100 people. And I'll bet you all 100 people will go, yep, that's me. That's me. That's me. That's me. That's me. No matter what month they were born.
Yeah.
You're thrifty. Well, yeah, I don't like to spend money. I don't have to.
Yeah.
Well,
you fill in the blanks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, but at the same time, though, there are certain characteristics like, so there's an ever youthful sense, and it's written about the Aries sort of like thing. because they're like the first sign of the, I'm sure you've looked into it to some level.
Not really, but
Well, I'm because I look into like as much as I can in every direction, and so it's useless sort of, knowledge in this and that. But they claim in this sort of like, what is it? Not astrology. Is it
yeah,
Yeah.
astrology, yeah.
They so that since it's the youthful, it's the first sign, so it's the babe. It's the for So people born in this time are ever youthful in their thinking. They're always surprised, everything, and you kind of do fit that bill. Even though with whatever experience as you go through life, you do have a certain fondness of the new experience, and you seem to have that.
Well, yeah, but my wife was born in September and she has that as well.
Well,
So, I think it more is ascribed to attitude, outlook on life, experience, and just personality than it does really to to anything else. And, whether there's anything to it or not, I doubt it. But I don't know. We'll see.
I don't doubt any of it, because I see ourselves living in this sort of like. So look, I can't exclude it and I can't confirm it. It's one of those things that, if the moon controls the waves of the ocean, if the elements around control the seasons, and if there's a cycle of things, then I'm not completely against the idea of that being
Well,
some possibility.
seasonal cycles. I mean, look at people who live in Northern Europe. I mean, you talking about seasonal depression when the sun's going down at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and doesn't come up until 10 o'clock the next morning. There is a depression that's associated with not much sunlight. And it's it does act on you physically and psychologically. So it is seasonal affected disorder is what they call it. Excuse me. It is a real thing. So changes in season, I can see how somebody coming out of a long dark winter and into a more even spring and then getting into the summer, how attitudes can change with the seasons because it is a medical condition. But I don't know. I don't know how you reconcile one trait being ascribed to one zodiac sign and another trait being ascribed to another zodiac sign when those same traits are scattered all over the place.
Well, the way
You know?
it's not either or with any of these things.
Yeah.
There's dominance
Hmm.
and there's variation. Like, so there's dominant traits and then
Yeah.
there's dormant traits.
Sure.
It's not one thing or the other. So it's not like, oh, like Aries are happy,
Mhm.
everybody else is miserable, as an example.
Well,
There's
understood.
yeah,
Understood. But and then trying to reconcile our idea of the zodiac with the Asian idea of the zodiac. Like you were born 1975, right?
yeah.
Okay.
That's the rabbit or something, I think.
Yes, that's the year of the rabbit,
Yeah.
1975. So people born in the year of the rabbit are not aggressive, but approachable. They have a decent, noble, and elegant manner. Would you say yes or no?
Um, generally speaking, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And that's you too. I think that would.
Um, well,
Oh, is it because of the year?
right. It goes by the year.
Oh,
Year
okay.
you were born.
Okay, so
Okay.
how about your year?
Okay. People born I'm the year of the ox. People
Hmm.
born in the year of the ox are probably tardy in action. So I guess that means late or whatever, but industrious and cautious. Most of them are conservative and hold their faith firmly.
That's not you at
Okay.
all.
So,
they, they,
but let me throw this one out. Okay. I'm not going to tell you what this is.
they could have just. I'm sorry. I just have to. They could have just said Mark Lindsay. they could have just. They could have just stamped the Mark Lindsay on the thing and kept going, because you are cautious when you're examining, like, to
Yeah.
approach, and your detail think about what they just said.
Mhm.
That's how you approach your videos when you're wanting to teach and stuff. And
Well,
dude, that describes you, dude. I'm sorry.
okay, now let's throw this out here.
Look, clunk. You could stamp it.
Yeah. Well, let's let's throw this out here, okay? How about the impression of independence and integrity?
Say that again.
An impression of independence and integrity
Yeah, I think so. For who?
in either one of us. Enthusiasm, energy, independence, integrity, making efforts to improve themselves with passion and diligence.
Dude, that sounds. What does it say it for all the for all the years?
Oh, I just picked one at random. This is the year of the horse. People born in 1966, 1978. It has nothing to do with either one of us.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just looking at traits to see who they kind of matched.
Right.
You know?
I see what you're saying, but see, here's the thing. It's like what we said in the beginning. If you say anything, so like, if you say people that are pissed off sometimes or people that get pissed off in the morning when things don't go right, everybody's gonna say yeah, because that happens to everybody. It's a matter of degree. So I guess what we're talking here is like it's all bull crap.
Yeah, basically, it's all a bunch of BS. I mean, I really honestly don't know. I know, and maybe it's just my cynical side saying it, but I don't know how you could ascribe any of your traits to where Mercury is sitting or where Jupiter is sitting. And oh my gosh, Mars is rising. I think there's a lot of placebo effect involved in that. And if you really honestly think it's going to affect you, it probably will. But
Yeah,
if you
well,
don't pay attention to it like me, it probably won't.
right, but that is still so. As long as you take into so here's the thing. Understand this.
Mhm.
That's all well, and I understand that, and I
Mhm.
agree with you, because at the same time we can't live, in that fashion, or maybe we could but I am totally open to external forces, cosmic, you know, affecting cycles. I am totally not closing off to the possibility that these things, look, if you live in an area
Mhm.
and the sun browns you,
Mhm.
or you live in another area and because of lack of daylight, you pale, and because through generations, this and that, and certain deficiencies because the sun, vitamin C, and this and that. So these people from this area actually have these kind of problems and are better. And you have all these things happening because of humans being there, and these are conditions around them. Why not more the vast universe that we're in anyhow?
Because because the sun is closer and directly affects us. I couldn't tell you where Jupiter is right now.
No, but see, but you don't have to be a participant. So
Right.
so remember, the key point in what I'm saying is that sure, I'm with you, like we
Mhm.
live our lives and we move
Right.
on, but I'm not excluding that maybe some sort of external magnetic rotation because of the universe and this and that, when people are born under the do you remember? I don't know if this is a thing, but I remember, like, through family tradition, they'd say if a pregnant woman looks up at a full moon when she's pregnant, the son will, or the child will come out with some sort of mold, or like little wives' tales like that.
I've not heard that specific one, but yeah, there were things like that.
Right. So people have all these things. So I'm quite aware that we can, you know what I'm saying? I'm quite aware
Mhm.
that I mean, we've talked enough so
Yeah.
that we know that, I'm quite aware that things can get convoluted, mixed up because of our superstition or lack of information. So I'm totally understanding, but I will not sort of close the door on the possibility of the mysterious possibly having some sort of credibility. I can't do that because I don't know.
I will. because I have to, my default position has to be, show me, give me evidence. You might change my mind, but give me evidence. And I think that ever since man has been putting any stock in zodiac symbols and in horoscopes and what have you, there would at least be some credible evidence by now. And I haven't really seen any. A lot of it is anecdotal. A lot of it is coincidental. And I do think that there's an awful lot of placebo effect going on there, in that if you think it's going to affect your life, it probably will. Everybody knows somebody, and you may even yourself, and maybe even me if I think about it, know somebody who read a horoscope that says they were going to come into riches today and got a tax refund check 3 days earlier than they thought they would. My horoscope was right. I found a $20 bill. But you don't think of all the times you found something like that when your horoscope didn't say that. You just remember the one that matches. And there's a lot of placebo effect in there. Don't go out today. It's not a good day for you financially. Yeah, don't I know it? I had a car accident and that cost me thousands.
Right. Well, in reference to the horoscope specifically, particularly because we're Western, and there are a lot of people that follow those things. If not, they wouldn't be popular.
Right.
But particularly because we're Western, it's easy for me to say to you, well, yeah. Okay, so, but again, beyond the West, what I'm mentioning is beyond the horoscope thing, just the fact that the mysterious could have sway. Not saying that I'm living my life by it and all these, but the possibility that the Twilight Zone is just one step off to the side, I keep it open because one never knows. I keep it open because, well, heck,
well, the sun definitely does have a physiological effect on us. You do get one vitamin from the sun. It stimulates the body to create the vitamin, and the psychological effects of there are more happy people in the summer than there are in the winter. Seasonal affective disorder and things like that. There are depression is not as common or is not as prevalent in the summer from spring until autumn, but it's very prevalent in the winter, in the autumn and winter, and then early spring, when there's more darkness than daylight. So yes, the sun has a definite effect on us, if for nothing else, heat and light. The moon, the jury's still out. There may be something. I mean, it does affect gravity. I mean, the tides are evidence of that. But whether any other celestial body has a physical effect on any person and any organism on Earth, it's still out there. I mean, I know I sound, and it's the cynical side of me, but I have to default to my old position, which is show me, give me evidence. You might change my mind.
But here's the thing. But here's the thing about that cynical position. It's sometimes you don't know. There's nothing to show. Nothing's going to show itself unless you go. So you're not going to. I'll give you an example. Now if people are trying to sell you over the counter frickin', gold alchemy transforming liquid, that's one thing. But like as a general, I'm encompassing as a general rule of thumb, nobody's gonna come up to you and say, hey, dude, here is a map that leads you into the Valley of the Kings, and if you dig in the sand and if you find, through, you will find the freaking ancient, Phoenix slash. So, and that's just an example,
right?
So my thing is that I keep an open mind and fish around, just but not that I'm gonna be committed to a certain.
Well, but I think plausibility falls into it as well. Nobody's going to walk up and hand me the map, but if I hear a story that there's a lost city out in the in the rainforest somewhere in South America. Okay, that sounds plausible. It is quite possible, that we know for a fact that there are civilizations that used to live there that disappeared. We have found evidence of that. We know it. So to say there's a lost city down there, okay, that's plausible. To say there's a lost city under my backyard, I don't know.
Right,
I
but that's not as
really don't know,
yeah, but that's not a
But
so look, it's
but
that's not
saying that Mercury lining up with Mars and Pluto in a certain position at a certain time of the year is going to bring me better financial success, I think is a lot of hooey.
right. Well, so yeah, I get that. So like, but is it a lot of hooey to say that? Is it a lot of hooey to say? Because this is where I'm coming from. Not necessarily that
Mm-hmm.
that sort of like, hey man, if you on the third day rise up before dawn and pluck a chicken's tail feather and walk over to the grocery store, I'm not saying that kind of thing. I'm saying that if we are affected by our environment,
Uh-huh.
if we are affected by each other,
Uh-huh.
if we can push each other into different moods, if we can, if we can sort of like back away and control and realize and hold on to our certain constitution and not allow things to affect us, we know they're there. If there's all these sort of synergy sort of interacting elements, humans, animals, temperature, all these things, who's to say, even though it's not been proven, let's say, that cycles apart from the year, apart from the cycles of, the equinox, apart from these cycles where the birds realize it's time to seasonal, who's to say that there's not even more that actually does affect us in a psychological way? I don't know. I'm not saying that I know
Well,
that for a fact. I'm just saying that I don't know. It doesn't sound far fetched that that something more could be, that does affect it.
I'm not saying that something more couldn't be. I'm saying show me. That's what I'm saying.
But
I'm not that willing to just follow along.
yeah, but show me.
I've always been that way.
Yeah, but the show me is not to. Okay, so I'm just saying that. So the show me is like. So okay, here's the thing. To you, if it's not seen, then it's not a possibility
No,
because
I'm not
that's
saying that at all. I'm saying that if you are telling me that I'm telling you that I don't know. If you're telling me that it's a possibility, I'm saying, okay, present your case. Show me your evidence.
no,
Maybe you'll
no.
change my mind.
But what am I saying?
I don't know what you're saying. You're saying that it's possible that there's something else out there. I'm
Right.
saying it's possible there's something else out there too, but
Aha.
I don't tend to believe it because the things people have presented to me for evidence have been a lot of BS.
Well, now isn't that much better? Because
You know,
I'm saying the same thing you're saying. I'm quite open to possibilities.
I'm
You
not
know,
I'm not as open as you are. I will say that. I'm not as open as you are because of all the charlatans and fakery and foolery and just plain and simple bovine scat that's running around out there.
well, yeah. I
You know,
mean, it's a difficult look. It's a difficult thing. So look. So I do believe that we came not from just, and this is touching on a thing, but just as an overview, I believe that there is something more. I can't prove it. I'm
mhm,
aware that I can't prove it. So
right?
there's nothing to sort of like, offer,
Hmm.
but I do believe that there's now, and I'm aware. See, here's the thing: I'm aware that I believe that there's a greater
Hmm.
purpose in life existence, but at the same time, I know that I can't prove it, and
Right.
at the same time, notice all these things because a human can, if you're fair,
Hmm.
and if you're fair and trying to be balanced, you have to hold all these cards and say all these things are a possibility. That's how you
Sure.
sort of.
Even
So,
when they oppose one another, though.
no, but let me get to what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I believe
Hmm.
I believe that there's a greater purpose in existence,
Hmm.
but I can't prove it.
Hmm.
I can't I can't force a person to here. This is the can't do that. I believe there is, and at the same time, I hold the on another in another hand the fact that I may be totally
Right.
misjudging my
Mhm.
perception because of tradition. So I can see the long view as far as my eyes of the possibilities that I'm capable of understanding. I could be wrong. I could be misguided. Tradition could be influencing me. A movie that I saw, it could be totally true because it's all these
Right.
possibilities. But because there's this big mess, I'm just open to basically kind of like what you're saying. Okay, show me. So I'm kind of there with you,
Okay.
but I am not going to say, hold on, Tex. Not you can't. I'm gonna say, okay, go ahead, show me what's going on. Yeah, go. Yeah. I'm willing to enter that kind of domain, even though it's slightly in the ridiculous, if that makes
But
any sense.
okay, but my question to you is, are you willing to accept that possibility even when it completely and totally contradicts your position on a broader something a larger purpose, a greater purpose to life?
If it contradicts me, and
Uh-huh.
there's information to show
Well,
that,
it's not necessarily evidence or information.
yeah,
It's just
to.
people making the claim.
I'm willing to hear the opposing thing.
Well, I'm willing to hear it too, but I'm not very likely to believe it.
Oh, okay, I get. Yeah, yeah. You know what? It's because look,
You know,
because you have.
there are certain things that can't be proven and can't be disproven.
Yeah,
So you got to kind of keep an open mind to that.
right.
And I'm with you there.
Hmm.
But the whole thing about astrology with me, and I'm going to stick with astrology because that's what started this whole thing.
Yeah.
The whole
I'm
thing
not
with
talking. By wait, wait,
astrology to me
wait.
is
Let me just as a little side note, before you continue, I'm not this gun ho on the astrology thing, but Mark is sticking to it, and we were talking about it. But I'm looking at a bigger
dude,
purpose, just
dude.
in case.
No, I don't believe that. You've been shuffling tarot cards for a half hour.
Oh, continue.
But yeah, we were talking about astrology
We were.
is because you will never get two people to agree on the same thing. One will tell you that Mars is in retrograde and it means this. And another person will get there and say, yes, Mars is in retrograde and it means something completely and totally the opposite. There is no consensus. If there was any science to it at all, there would at least be a little bit of consensus. And there's absolutely nothing. You ask 5 astrologers, I said 5. There you go. You ask 5 astrologers the same question, and you're going to get 5 different answers. That's one of the things that, to me, strike one, and makes it less and less plausible. And every strike you get lowers it and keeps lowering it in the realm of possibility for me. And that's why I say I think it's a bunch of hooey.
Okay, so I'll just say this about that analysis of yours. I get it,
Mhm.
but but have you thought of a secondary level of that you might be missing? Maybe.
Such as?
Okay, so I get what you said, and I agree with that. If
Mhm.
nothing aligns, and from person to person, if you sort of like go across the table and there's 5 different astrologers giving different advice to the same person, or 5 people with the same sort of like days and this and that, and there's all this confusion, well, what good is it? We can't measure it, we can't be sure of it. So I get that what you're saying, and this is all in the name of like astrology and stuff.
Right.
I get it, but things like astrology, we'll stick to astrology. In the past, it comes from a source, be it fake or not, but the source that we're looking at now is a hybrid of lore and this and that,
Mhm.
of an of possibly of an a lost ancient way of doing certain calculations, or in this sort of like
I
abstract form. So what I'm getting at is Well, do you know what I'm getting at? Tell me if
I
you.
do know what you're getting at, but I think it's more
What,
along the
what
same
am I
line.
getting? What am I getting at though?
I think it's more along the same lines of what we were talking about earlier, with people trying to explain the world around them in the only way they knew how. It's kind of like the British building the sewer systems in London. They were trying to explain life and get rid of a problem the only way they knew how. They got the wrong theory, but they took the right action. They're explaining the world the only way they know how. And I think you're right about it coming down through folklore and tradition and talking about astrology. It was the way they were explaining the world around them in the only way they knew how, because they didn't have anything to contradict it. Does that
That
make sense?
that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me.
Mhm.
Like it makes sense to me. And on that note,
Mhm.
we would be okay. Like we know that this sort of thing exists. We
Mhm.
know it came up through the ages. We know that it's used now. We know people pay money. We know all these things, and we can calculate. I'm with you on that,
Mhm.
but I'm like, is there an untainted origin? Like for instance, like the Masonic symbolism throughout the country in different areas that can be traced through Europe. People now talk on the internet this and that, but originally it had a different meaning and a different purpose that had nothing to do. Like I'm sort of like thinking, well, where's the origin of that? Did it serve another purpose? Maybe it means something else. I'm open to those possibilities, and I know that you'd be okay with that. Um, but I'm kind of like, these things came from these places, so there could also be a legitimate origin of it that's not, you know,
Mhm.
like the medieval, let's keep the crap away from the food and stuff. There could be some sort of ancient. Look, I'll say this last bit. In the past, we've talked about this before.
Mhm.
There was technology that was not quite up to par,
Right.
scientifically, and in many respects.
Mhm.
But there's signs that there's something that there's civilizations in our past that had it going on. Maybe not with like what we have here that we're aware of, but there seems to be historical sort of missing sort of like the libraries at uh,
Alexandria.
Alexandria, things like that. There's so I guess at the end of the day, I like the mystery lore and sort of like, let's go see. I kind of like that. So I am a little bit more in favor of leaving it open, but I agree with your position.
If you're a fan of the mystery, that is something entirely different right there. See, I'm not. And you like the exploration side of it and wondering if there's a deeper meaning and maybe that there was some legitimate quote unquote science that came from it. I don't explore it that thick or that heavily, rather. I'm more, I don't know, I'm more skeptical of a lot of things. I mean, there were lots of mystics back then, lots of spiritualists, a lot of mediums, a lot of people claiming to be able to tell the future. Nostradamus. No, anything Nostradamus has ever written is only of any value just a few minutes after something happens. He didn't predict anything. You got to remember what the guy was. The guy was an apothecary. He was a pharmacist. He had all kinds of wild hallucinogens and stuff like that he was messing around with.
But for you to say more skeptic
Mm-hmm.
is not, because I'm very much a skeptic. Just because I entertain a thing,
Mm-hmm.
you can entertain a thing and not. So like we talk about crazy things like,
Yeah.
and you could hear like reptilians, the moon, the this, the that, all these things. It doesn't by any mean, just because if you don't, it doesn't mean that I believe these things. So it's
Oh no,
not.
I
It's not,
understand that.
there's no not that you're more of a skeptic
Mm-hmm.
or that I'm less a skeptic. It's just that I'm quite willing to be entertained
Mm-hmm.
and indulge
Right.
things that you would look at and say, well, there's no inlet here, there's no
And
road to go through.
and you said the secret word right there. You're entertained by that, and I'm not. I'm
Right.
just like, okay, fine. The guy trying to sell me on a horoscope is the same as the guy on my doorstep trying to sell me dish soap. Okay, fine. Our dishes are great. Thank you. If we need some, we got a store right down the road. Appreciate it. It's just, I'm not buying what you're trying to sell,
Yeah, well, I'd be the same way.
and that's simply because if there was any kind of science to it, I would probably entertain it a little bit more. I would probably be a little bit more interested in it, but I just don't see anything. I just don't see anything, you know, and like I said, if you went to 100 mediums or 100 spiritualists, and you went it, go hit next time you have the ability to do so, hit 5 different tarot card readers and see what they tell you,
Have you ever
and
been to a tarot
see
card
how
reader?
I've seen them, I've watched them, and see how many similarities there are. If there was anything to it, they should be nailing the same things over and over and over again. If there was anything to Mars in retrograde or Jupiter rising, then it would be something that had been noticed and reported on. There would be something written about it other than, in the Friday newspaper. There would be some sort of a study of it. Because, I mean, that's just the basic scientific method. Observe a phenomenon, develop a hypothesis that explains the phenomenon, then develop tests that prove or disprove the theory, the thesis. And that's not been done. Or if it has, it hasn't proven anything other than it's just a sham. And that's where I'm sitting on it. It's kind of like, to me, I don't believe in ESP. I don't believe in telepathy or any of that other stuff either, because it's been shot down too many times. Uri Geller being on the Tonight Show, bending spoons when he didn't know that Johnny Carson had the spoons swapped, and he couldn't do it because his special spoons weren't the ones that appeared with him on stage. And Uri Geller was world famous, and that Tonight Show ruined his career because one guy said, no, swap out those spoons. Take him this one. And right there on live TV, he couldn't do it. When
Yeah.
things like that happen too many times, you wonder why I'm a doubting Thomas.
No, I listen. I've been listening to you just now, and I can see and I get that. So, you know, I can't say much against what you're saying. Um, so I have no problem with it, right?
Yeah.
I'm just totally um so like whereas we'll go into the medieval, let's okay, so as an example, you and I will go and we enjoy talking about
Mhm.
Europe, medieval ages, right? We enjoy
Yeah.
that,
Mhm.
right? And I understand that there were no dragons flying around.
Mhm.
You understand? Like I get it.
Yeah.
And wizards walking through the forest, with fireballs and stuff. I get that.
Mhm.
But um the magic of that nonetheless exists for me traveling back to those times, because in parallel
Mhm.
um they did talk about mages, they did talk about witches, they did talk about all these things. They may not have cast actual spells and this and that, but that ended up being like, I guess, Dungeons and Dragons nowadays.
Yeah.
Remember, at the end of the day, um I do like the entertainment of it, and I do like I kind of like, I'm kind of a kid in that respect. I like the adventure, the Harry Potter. Although I'm
Mhm.
not a Harry Potter guy, but you get the point.
I do. I do.
I
And
like sort of that, and
and
I'm willing to, sort of
and
like, oh,
and
explore.
and the stories of mythology are entertaining to me. Get into some Celtic or Scottish mythology and kind of check out some of the stories. There's some very cool stories. But I also have to keep in mind that these were people that were trying to explain life in a way that they could understand at the time. They thought that there was a god of thunder. We now know that there isn't. We can explain where thunder comes from. They couldn't. We know where rain comes from. They didn't know. They couldn't explain it. We know why people get warts on their face. It's a virus. They didn't know that. So they tried to explain things in
The
a
best they
way
could.
as best they could.
Yeah,
And some
I
of that
get.
has stuck with us, and some of it has gone away, and some of it is so obscure we wouldn't even know it,
Well,
you know,
how
unless
about
somebody finds a new tablet.
how about things like you can't eat, or I'm sorry, you shouldn't take a bath or shower after you eat, as an example.
Uh,
Um,
I was never told that, but I was told don't go swimming for an hour after you eat because you'll get a cramp and drown.
right.
I was told, yeah, that's one of those old wives' tales. Wives'
Mhm.
tales.
Yeah,
There's not been a recorded case of that.
right. But
There have been people who have drowned within a certain amount of time eating, but it's no more prevalent to people who have not eaten at all that day. I mean, the numbers are about the same.
right. So we live in we're kind of like living in sometimes that we spend a lot of time in a dream state as is.
Oh yeah, we do.
I mean, it's part of our and they've studied this.
You
So
spend 1/3 of your life asleep, so it only stands to reason.
no, but what I mean dream state is that when you're awake,
Mhm.
that we fall in and out. Have you heard this?
No, I haven't heard this.
So a human being, when they're awake, you know, we and let's say you stare into the TV screen or computer screen, we go throughout the day going through states of in and out of a
Yeah,
sort of hypnosis.
I get what you're. Okay, I now I know and understand what you're talking about. Yeah,
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 we go through that. So there's a lot of so it's as easy as this to the human being. A dream can seem very real, and it's not real at all.
sure,
There's a subconscious sort of level to things
sure.
that we don't understand to this, but we know it's there. And so there's all these connections of things that are unknown. We can't live with them, by them because they're obscured, but they're there. And I'm kind of coming from that angle
Mhm.
of it. And there's something in the past, as we go towards the past, that's I don't know. It's like Indiana Jones exploring back. There might not be any. I'm not looking for something to be magical or something to be, like
Yeah,
I'm not looking for. I'm just looking to look to see what's actually there. And
yeah.
so yeah. So I'm a little bit more Dungeons and Dragons than you are.
Well, you're more of an explorer into that kind of realm than I am because you said it yourself. You're entertained by that. I'm not, so I'm not really interested in it. But let me ask you a question. You were talking about memories and things and being in that dream state. When you think about back on, memories that you have from your childhood,
Yeah.
are there memories that come to you that are as clear as day, and then others that are a little fuzzier? And I guess what I'm getting at, there's one memory that I have that I don't know if I really actually remember it or not. Or is it a case of I've heard the story told so many times I think I remember it?
Hmm.
Do you have anything like that with you? That
Uh, yeah.
your mom has told the story 1,000 times to people, friends and family or what have you, and you just started associating it, and you can now picture that in your mind, and then it becomes a memory. Oh yeah, when I was 4 I did this. I don't know what I was doing when I was 4. I was 4. you know
Yeah. I don't think that I have anything like that
hmm
other than the witch thing out the window
yeah,
that we talked about.
yeah,
Um, you know, I don't think I have anything like that. And I can remember back very early. And could it be a dream state that I don't think I could remember the freaking stickers on my baby high chair.
yeah. We've talked about this before. You've got a much better memory of that kind of thing than I do. And I don't know if it's because there's 14 years difference in our ages, or just I wasn't really paying attention and didn't care. But I don't remember that far back. I can remember, I have brief flashes of things from when I was a toddler, but it's basically where I was. I remember standing in my grandparents' living room and my grandpa falling asleep in his chair. But I had also seen that so many times that I don't know if I remember a specific event or if I'm just imagining a scene that I'd
Yeah.
seen before so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It
we
just
do.
false memory is what I was getting at.
We do have. There's so many things that are in that sort of cloudy area.
Mhm.
Um, it's an impossible task, and I've told you that that I've been doing the ancestry thing, and just looking at things. There's also the issue of being in awe,
Mhm.
looking back at people that were before you
Yeah.
and their lifespans, but and looking at them on the screen like that, as far as events chronicled,
Yeah.
and it's just, I'm shocked. I'm in awe of life. Even with the ups and downs and this and that,
Mhm.
I'm just I'm just shocked at the whole thing. I
Yeah.
just am.
When you talk about going back and looking at your timeline, your family tree or what have you, and looking at how people lived back then, I'm a
Yeah,
huge history fan. I'm a huge buff of that kind of thing. So I know exactly where you're coming from there.
yeah, yeah,
Seeing
and
pictures, I'm scanning through pictures and doing pictures that I got when my father passed away of his mother when she was 16 years old.
oh,
Out in the front yard with the, shovel, going to plant this bush, right after they moved up here from Los Angeles into the first house that they lived in. I've got a picture of her down in Los Angeles, well, down in Southern California somewhere, on the beach with her brother. And, she's 14. And it's just, that's my grandmother. It's just mind boggling to me.
just
That's
amazing.
real old photographs. But yeah, I'm real interested in that kind of thing because that's part of my story. That's who I am.
Well,
But
I want to tag along in this thing. I know that we're drawing to a close here because we've got plenty of information,
oh
but
boy,
since we're here, here's another thing within this conversation. I am traveling back in time, and I can't quite get over certain hurdles,
hmm
which we've talked about before. And in my mind, I'm thinking there's a name right over here heading towards the 1600s, like crossing the line into like 1500s,
right.
late 1500s. There's a name that
hmm
has no attachment to it. I know it's there. I can't connect anybody to him,
Yep.
and I know he's there.
hmm
And I know that it's from I'm from of that lineage.
hmm
And I'm thinking, if I could just reach that and then over the next horizon and over, what are we, other than the fact that we are chronicling so we can see the timeline of, but how far back can we really go?
Yeah.
We can't, there's a point that,
Yeah. There's a point where there were no records kept. There's a point where you have to stop because there's no way of knowing. But the challenge is to go back as far as you can. With me, it's back to one ancestor, Anthony Lindsay. We've got to find his father, and we don't know where to go.
it's not like you can get in your car and drive to the little township
No.
and knock on doors and say, hey,
Yeah.
around the year 1219,
Yeah.
there's no one that you can do that.
Well, it's just not online. We have to go there. I mean, you're talking about one of your relatives in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to find out as much as you could about him in Spain and then go to that place and start looking in church records and county courthouses and things. They're equivalent to county courthouses and things of that nature because records were kept. You just need to find where his records were kept. There's a record of his birth somewhere. You got to find it.
There was a great fire in 1940 that damaged like the city's libraries and the whole thing. I finally read up on that, but there's still a lot of documents. It's just
and that stuff still happens. The U.S. Army, all of their personnel records are kept in St. Louis, Missouri. Well, it's not exactly in St. Louis; it's outside of St. Louis, but they had a huge fire back in the 70s. and all of the records up to the letter H were destroyed.
Jeez. Up
So
to or from
up,
back
up
forward?
to, so from G back, they're gone.
Well, those are the best letters.
From 19 prior to 19, I want to say 1972, and I may be wrong there, but so prior to 19, if you have a relative who was in the U.S. Army before 1972, their records are gone
I,
because your last name starts with an E.
my old man
Mhm.
was, yeah, but guess what? It's funny you say that. Um, I don't, so I can't find him online. I did try the other night, but my old man was in the army in '62,
Mhm.
and he kept the actual physical papers. So I have the actual physical papers.
And the records you have are the only records that exist because they were gone in that fire. They were wiped out in that fire.
I
So
did not know that.
yeah. So you have the. Let me see. Let me look it up. We're gonna go long here, folks, and we're gonna go longer.
Well, I mean, why not? What else are you gonna do on a Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday night.
Okay, 1973 fire. The National Personnel Records.
Okay.
It was July 12th, 1973. And personnel discharged from 1912 to 1960, 80% of those records were lost. And
Oh,
Air Force personnel from 1947 to 1964, 75% are gone.
that's horrible.
They're saying right here with names alphabetically after James E. Hubbard. Those are okay. So, but it was huge. It was absolutely ginormous. So, in fact, they had it took the participation of 42 fire districts to put it out. And because of the extensive damage, they were never able to determine the cause of the fire.
Holy smokes.
So everybody before James E. Hubbard was lost.
From what year?
Well, they were saying from 1973 back.
Oh, I thought, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So then my dad, if I would not have these things stored,
Mhm.
there'd be no knowledge.
It destroyed, right, there'd be none. It destroyed between they can only estimate, it destroyed between 16 and 18 million records. So you have the only copies of your father's records. You could take photocopies and send it to the records depository so somebody down the road can look for them.
Yep.
And they are asking people to do that if you have any copy of any records.
Well, I do.
So,
Wow, that's shocking. I did not know that bit because I was looking for them today, or yesterday with Steve, and I couldn't find anything on the sort of like military
yeah,
site.
that's why. That's why. And you also have Privacy Act. There's a lot of information the government cannot release to the public. They can release it to you because you're related. So if they do have anything, you can request it.
Right.
And there's a form you fill out to request it. But like I couldn't request it. I'd have to prove that I'm related to him.
Gotcha.
So.
Wow, dude. All right. Well, hey, this has been
Been a roller coaster, all right.
yeah. As always, I'll tell you what. We always go in different directions, and it's a very enjoyable podcast. And if you guys want more, check out trampledunderfootpodcast.com. And if you hit that Wayback Machine button, we have some really cool episodes where we really get into different topics. I mean, just anything you could imagine to do with history, music, pop culture. What else, Mark?
Movies, TV, living in the desert, living in life in Miami.
Yeah.
It just, you name it. We talk about travel, we talk about food, we talk about music, we talk about movies and TV and you name it. It's all there.
So every Tuesday at 5 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, we have the podcast go out to the world. And so we do these recordings here on this channel. So subscribe to Trampled Underfoot Podcast here on YouTube. Check out the website, trampledunderfootpodcast.com. And if you have any sort of, I guess, curiosities, questions, things you'd like us to touch on in the podcast, or even if you have a critique and you think, well, Eloy and Mark didn't, or Mark and Eloy didn't get that quite right, let me correct them. Go ahead and send us a little dirty letter and let us know so we can talk about it.
We're grown-ups. We can take it. If you hit our website, trampledunderfootpodcast.com, we have a contact us page. That's the easiest way to get a hold of us, or leave a comment in this video.
All right.
Unless you're a spammer, in which case you'll be ignored in the order in which you received.
That's right. We don't, it has to be honest to goodness stuff, right? We don't want to waste our time for that.
Exactly.
Right. You guys be good. We'll catch you next time.
Take care. Bye-bye.